Joining me now, North Dakota Senator, Senate Armed Services and Budget Committee member Kevin Cramer. Senator, a pleasure to see you this morning. A happy new year. What do you make of what we know so far coming out of Georgia?
Well, obviously, why not? I mean, why not come down to the last minute of a runoff and see who's going to control the Senate in a year like we've had? That said, I'm still hopeful. I'm holding out for those, particularly those military ballots that haven't been opened and counted yet. If David Perdue has a shot before the end of this day, I think that's where his best opportunity lies. Now, all of that said, what's at stake, and I know you guys know this is better than anybody, and what's at stake is, for one thing, real big things like elimination of the filibuster, packing the courts, adding a couple of senators by making the District of Columbia a state. Those are huge ramifications should they even get 50 senators and Kamala Harris spends a couple of weeks in the Capitol. But even at the moment, when you just look at how elections are handled and realizing that Nancy Pelosi's dream, and she's been quite open about it, is to nationalize elections and to allow universal vote by mail everywhere, not just allow it, require registration, require voting, prohibit states from putting restrictions on voter identification, not just allowing, but requiring ballot harvesting in every state. So this is a frightening potential outcome if even one Democrat, if we end up 50-50 and even one Democrat, or even 51-49 and one Democrat decides to do something. It's just a very frightening, frankly, situation.
Well, I want to ask you about Senator Joe Manchin, because there's been so much talk about how will he vote? Would he vote? Would he vote along with his party, or would he be a more reasonable, middle of the road member of the Senate, despite being a Democrat? But that's a lot. Or even turning to Senator Sinema from Arizona, but that's a lot to count on, is it?
Well, it is a lot to count on, and I love both Joe and Kirsten. I know them well, and Joe is a lot like a North Dakotan. West Virginians are a lot like North Dakotans. The problem with Senator Manchin, in my observations of him, is he's a pretty good moderate vote unless Chuck Schumer needs him, and if the vote makes a difference, which is the only time it really matters, he hasn't been that reliable. So you can't rely on that. Kirsten's a bit even more rebellious than Joe is in her conference, as she was in the House when I served with her there. But those are not the things you can count on. Remember, there's a lot. The majority has a lot to give a senator. They have a lot that they can, that they can entice them with, like chairmanships and other things. So I'd rather not test that, Dagan. I'd rather make sure that David Perdue comes back for after a re-election, and we keep our majority. Senator
Steve Forbes is here. I know he has something he wants to ask you, or many things. Steve.
Thank you, Dagan. And Senator, in terms of regulation, what do you see coming against two parts of your state, energy and agriculture? Regardless of how the Senate race in Georgia goes, the remaining one looks like they're going to go to war against agriculture with environmental regulations, energy, pipelines, and the like. What do you see on the horizon? Is there anything that can be done to stop that freight train that's going to damage your state?
So great point, Steve. And this is one of probably the greatest concerns about losing the majority in the Senate, because remember, Democrats voted unanimously against many of Donald Trump's nominees. For example, at places like EPA and other agencies. If we lose the majority, we lose that leverage over the administration. So when it comes to confirming the advise and consent role, which is very important in the Senate and unique to the Senate, if we lose that leverage, those things could even be worse. See, there's no question their goals are very clear, and that is to do exactly the things you're doing. I mean, everything from private property rights to how water is managed and land, and then of course, as you said, the energy industry, pipelines, the siting of pipelines. I mean, that's bad enough as it is with all the consent decrees and the liberal courts. But the one bright spot, Steve, is that for 4 years, Donald Trump, working with Mitch McConnell and Republicans in the Senate, has at least nominated and confirmed several very good conservative judges and justices up and down the court system, and that will be the backstop. I just hate to litigate everything.
Yeah, I actually have, because I'm such a nerd, Senator. I have the number of judges written down on a folder that I carry around with me. It's 3 Supreme Court justices, 54 appeals court judges, and 174 lower court judges. That's what the Trump administration was able to do. I want to move on to what happens on Capitol Hill today as the Electoral College certifies its votes during a joint session of Congress. A growing number of Republican lawmakers in the House and particularly the Senate are set to challenge the certification. And President Trump is pressuring Vice President Mike Pence, who will oversee the certification. The president went as far as tweeting this: "If Vice President Mike Pence comes through for us, we will win the presidency. Many states want to decertify the mistake they made in certifying incorrect and even fraudulent numbers in a process not approved by their state legislatures, which it must be. Mike can send it back." This coming as Trump supporters are set to march on Washington today. President Trump is expected to speak. Senator, you will not be objecting to the certification. Tell me why.
Well, for me, Dagan, it's just a matter of conscience and my oath to the Constitution. My conscience is captive to God, and my oath to the Constitution. The Constitution is, in my mind, is quite clear that Congress has a role to count previously certified by the states where they're supposed to be certified ballots that are provided sealed to the President of the Senate. I don't see an option to that. I do think, however, that the cases that you're talking about in some of these swing states where the legislature didn't authorize the changes that were made, they unfortunately, in a couple of cases, courts have determined that the legislature authorized the bureaucrat who did change those laws. And so that's a challenge that's going to take longer to litigate than what we have between now and this afternoon. I see nowhere, either in law or statute, where the Vice President, as the President of the Senate, has the authority to send them back. I mean, that'd be great if that was true, but I just don't see that he has that authority.
Right. The Constitution, I think, only empowers the Vice President to open the Electoral College certificates, not even count them. That's not even speaking to the issue of rejecting them. Senator Kevin Cramer, always a pleasure, sir. If I can ever take a road trip, I've got to get to North Dakota.
Please do.
It's one of the
few
states I've never driven through, so I'm on my way eventually.
All right.
Senator,
all right.
be well. Thank you so much. Coming